All right, welcome everyone. Tellor 360. This is what basically we're going to talk about the next version of Tellor. We've done upgrades basically every year. We've had big upgrades. So first we had Tellor 1, then a year and a month later we had Tellor V2, then a year and a month later we had Tellor X. I think so. We're actually thinking about what's the next one going to be. You know, this actually fits with the timeline, even though it's like only April. Usually we brainstorm it, then do an audit, then do, you know, have to build it, lots and lots of testing, make sure everything's good, because these are usually bigger upgrades. That said, I don't think this is actually going to be as big of one or as big of a build, so it should be a hell of a lot easier. Now, just thinking like, okay, so what's the state of Tellor versus like 1 year ago whenever we were making these upgrades? Basically, the price is way down. That sucks. But, you know, we're following like the whole crypto market. All the alts are down. It's just kind of a rough period. But still, like, what's the big bottleneck for Tellor? It's getting actual users. This is kind of a big bottleneck for a lot of people in the space, but it's, you know, still, but a year ago, we have more users than we did a year ago. We have way more potential users than we did a year ago. I mean, we have people coming in every day at least, trying to use Tellor and coming and talking to us about using Tellor. We have to sort of start pushing them over the finish line. Obviously, a lot of it doesn't have to do with us. It has to do with whether or not they're serious about getting their code through the door. But what can we do to make them successful and getting them across the door? That's what we have to think about when we're making these changes to Tellor. How can it actually lead to more usage? More usage will sort of drive kind of the whole product demand, the whole community, everything will come from, and that's always been our theory. You know, we want to lead by actual usage. The other things that we should think about, you know, like a lot of this has to go down to like the vision of Tellor. You know, from day one, we've always been decentralization maxis. Well, we're kind of in the middle. We're recording, so you're interrupting, but it's okay.
No, he just started.
Come on, Will, guys. This is Will in the person.
Hey.
I think we need that chair.
Oh yeah. We just started, so we're going over current state of Tellor for everyone. If you want it, yeah. But the other thing, you know, from day one, we've always thought decentralization is important. And if you think about just how can we make it overall better? How can we make it faster? How can we make it more secure? How can we make it more decentralized? Those are the three things. If there's a way to do it without trading off any of the other pieces, let's do it. So, and lastly, I put this on here just, you know, as something we should think about with every upgrade. How can we simplify it? You know, how can we sort of, a lot of times the death of, you see these big projects that have launched 5 years ago now on Ethereum, and they're just massive code bases that nobody can understand. They have very limited users, and like basically you have to like go, you know, use this interface that they put up because like, you know, it's a Solidity version 4 contract that's 8,000 lines long and nobody's ever going to read it or be able to understand it. We don't want that. How can we make it simpler? How can we sort of make, there can be complexity, but how do you keep it around the edges versus easy to understand, which I think people really like that about Tellor. Okay, so that's the goals. So yeah, I guess we'll write them over here. So we want to be increase users, increase decentralization. Increase simplicity or decrease complexity. Those are the goals.
Speed too.
What you can
increase speed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the speed is one, like with the current design, it's actually a really cool design in the way that it works with speed. It's more dependent on the L1 speed than actually on us. I think the bigger piece with how we can increase speed, which we'll get to kind of at the end, is like speed that people can use it at. So like, you know, we tell people like have an hour-long delay. You could theoretically reduce that to a block or two away if we have really, really good dispute monitors that are on it. And that's just going to take time and practice to build those things out. But even the really good dispute monitors are, you know, then you have the issue of can they censor your transaction from even hitting the chain? Just different topics, but the main protocol theoretically can be really, really fast, and it's more of an issue on L1. Using it, we do have work there. So the main changes, so these are changes that I've talked these over with Mike and Brenda. I mean, we talked about it like at one meeting, and then I like brainstormed it in my head. So these are my ideas. These are not like gospel. We don't have to, these aren't like, we're doing this and you guys will have to go build it. If you guys have better ideas, we want to talk about all of them. But just as like a way to kick it off, what we see would be good changes for Tellor. Without brainstorming from zero, these are what we think we should do. Big one, flex on mainnet. So I think if you've been paying attention, we all should have seen this one coming. Basically, we have Tellor Flex on all the other chains. We should make Ethereum mainnet just match that. It's arguably, they're basically the exact same system. The only thing you take out is like that tipping piece, which would then go over to autopay. Which would then mean our basic Tellor contract, that master contract, would basically just turn into a token, which would be cool. We could also, to make the token match all of the bridge DRC20 tokens, we could remove upgradability. And we could, since it would just be a token, you could remove any of the risk of upgradability in there. So this is actually a big piece that I sort of like. Upgradability. Yeah. You sort of get rid of that. Like, I think one of the bigger issues with Tellor right now is security is like, right now we have upgradability in our contract. And if you break that voting mechanism, you can break Tellor. You could upgrade it. You could trash the token price. You could just nullify all the values. You could really trash it. By removing the upgradability, moving to just a Tellor Flex that you can't do that on, there's actually no way to do that. I mean, even in Tellor Flex, you know, with the current Tellor Flex design, which we'll obviously go and like relook at, but even if you broke the governance on Tellor Flex, like it would still be, you actually can't put values back on chain on Tellor Flex. So it's like, it would be really, really hard to actually break it and get bad values through or trash the token price or something by breaking the voting mechanism on Tellor Flex. It just would be impossible. So this would be a huge thing for like sort of the decentralization aspect of the protocol. Now I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it goes into maybe some messaging bits a little bit. You know, maybe you guys have heard me talking about it on some of the calls, but there's like, you can talk about Tellor as a DAO, and then you can talk about Tellor as a protocol. And, you know, this would be a move more in the protocol direction. Like if you think of like a DAO as like more of a company, you have full control over everything involving the token and the structure and full upgradability. We're like kind of throwing that away in favor of more code is law type stuff, which is cool. So that said, there's two pieces here. The first would be, I guess, on governance. So like, okay, well, what does governance look like? I actually really like the structure we have over on other chains. So it's the 25% team, 25% token holders, reporters, and users. You could do that. The question so like similar to other chains, I like the model. Similar to other chains. we could obviously look at weights and things like that, just to make sure that there aren't any risks there. We can do some better deep dives into it. Also, how to maybe add users in a better way versus voting on the array. The other piece would be, would we want to use snapshot? We could use our own snapshot governance, promote voting. That could be cool. The only question is, so like Tellor Oracle would be bringing the snapshot vote on chain to govern it. Is there any sort of, there might be some, weird risk as far as, the feedback loop there. I think it works out, but we have to think about it a bit more. So yeah, a different thing. The other thing for the token. So this kills Brenda, the squeaky marker. How can we, if it's just a token, what can we do? We can take out checkpoints. So on mainnet, if you guys have noticed, Tellor tokens are like twice as expensive to transfer as a lot of other tokens. It's because we got the checkpoints. Chop them out. Super cool. Cheaper. The other thing, well, we talked about it, and then, okay, so if we're removing any upgradability, how do we mint tokens? Do we still vote on those? That's a really tough one. If we want to move towards more of a protocol, it's actually really hard, because like, if you have ability to mint tokens via the vote, it might as well be an upgrade, because you can still basically trash the entire token price. You just minted 1 billion, and then, now your reporter stakes are all worthless. So you would basically have to get rid of the ability to mint. Now, this doesn't mean like we wouldn't, it would be like more the ability to mint at your discretion, which is different. So we would just move to fixed issuance. So, right now we have sort of the team gets paid, what do we get paid, like 4,000 tokens a month. That's the team's dev share. We could just continue that. And then we have the time-based rewards, which is like another 4,000 something tokens a month. We could continue those. But for me, I wouldn't want to actually keep time-based rewards. I would actually propose we give, say it's like 8,000 tokens. I think we give the team, that just automatically goes to the team. And then the token-based rewards goes to a pot that the governance controls where it goes. So like it would be more of like the DAO structure around that pile of money. And we use it to fund basically the autopay contract. It would have to go to the autopay contract. The reason would be, so yeah. So you could have like, tokens to team, and then the rest would be to auto pays. Basically, the reason is like right now the time-based rewards, basically they just fund like the same IDs that aren't being requested over and over on mainnet, which is wasteful. And there's also no ability for us to put these over on Polygon or on, if we get users on Harmony, how can we subsidize users over there? Subsidize a reporter network over there. Let's use some of these tokens to do that. And I think it would be hard to sort of automate this. I think what it's probably going to look like is, by a vote, they'll delegate, this goes to the team to move over. Or this goes, you would delegate it to somebody else, or to a contract, or to a team member who would then put it over on some other chain, put it into the, if it's on mainnet Ethereum, you could obviously fund directly the autopay contract, but this one would be like, if it's on another chain, you would kind of need somebody to hold hands there, which would be fine, because it just makes it way more flexible. We need, like, I want to use these, like, if we use the time-based rewards, they're paying for liquidity stuff on Ethereum, they're paying for ample forth, that update every day. They're giving it to stuff that it's actually used, whenever we talk to a user, and they would say like, hey, like, how much is it going to cost? And we'd be like, actually, we got a bunch of tokens right now looking to help you guys out. Why don't you guys come on over, and it's free till these things run out. You get 1,000 tokens. Could easily do 1,000, if currently time-based rewards are giving away 4,000 a month, give 2,000 tokens to a new project to come on board and bootstrap you for 6 months. So those would be some fun ones. Obviously there would be no more treasuries because of this. So it's a trade-off. Okay. Should I take a picture, or I guess we're recording it, but thoughts so far, anybody? Should I just keep going? I'm almost done.
What are the top level like pros and cons of, okay, now treasuries are gone?
Pros and cons of treasuries gone. The pros, I mean protocol simplicity and the decentralization aspect. I mean, you have to give ourselves something, the ability to mint at discretion, that's what we kind of want to get rid of. The cons, the treasury was a cool system. I really liked it. Like if we could actually see it working, of people staking and getting rewards, which is kind of missing in Tellor to bootstrap some, I guess, participation. But I think we have another solution. Part of, so that would be kind of the pros and cons, basically. Like the cons are we don't get what treasury was supposed to do, which was supposed to drive token demand and sort of soak up some of this excess liquidity, which we still have in our token. But
does any of this architecture address that?
get into it.
Okay, before we move on though, the token rewards, would we want to like build in either algorithm for it to self-deprecate?
The treasuries?
Not the treasuries, for the tokens that go towards subsidizing usage. The 4,000 tokens that go towards, like, in a world.
Well, I mean, you
want to
could, so
allow-
like it would go to this DAO vote that would put people, so like the DAO would, if you broke the vote, you could just steal those tokens, basically. But like, obviously you're not gonna be breaking the vote anytime soon. But I think the bigger thing, like if, let's say we move, like you could just move those, like if you don't want to fund an auto pay, let's just burn those 4,000 tokens a month. Like they could vote on that. You could vote to, I don't know, let's send them to some Discord users eventually. Like if users aren't I think these 4,000 tokens would be like, these are used for users / like, what's the big bottleneck? That's what these things should be going towards. If our big bottleneck is marketing, we'll throw towards marketing. If our big bottleneck is reporters, we'll do something to fund more reporters.
It's more efficient because right now time-based rewards is like inefficient. It's just like
Super inefficient.
spray and pray, like here's rewards for reporting for whatever. So
It's not being used.
I mean, time-based rewards are good. We have a reporter network. I mean, to bootstrap a reporter network, it works. You have people reporting and they're not missing those time-based rewards, it's very, very live. So that's good, but at the same time, it's just very,
it could be improved by that.
how do we sort of make it not that less wasteful, I guess you could say. And I mean, obviously, so since it is still inflationary, so we're minting like 8,000 tokens a month or something, we still have inflation in our system, but it goes down over time. So, 8,000 tokens this year is going to be more of an inflation percent than next year, because it's obviously you have more tokens.
Before we get like some critical mass where it's like, oh, there's like a thriving ecosystem around this like protocol. Essentially making a fixed amount of tokens going to the dev team creates like another sort of existential risk, because like then it's like the price tanks or something.
It does. Yeah. No, I mean, we've talked about that, like, but you wouldn't want some risk of like, if the price does tank, then we get 100% inflation to match it. You could always, no, I mean, this goes back to like the early days whenever we were honestly discussing, like, the thing that most teams do is you have like a giant pre-mine with a lockup for the founders, and that's how the system funds itself is, you mint 1 million tokens right at the beginning, and then Mike, Brenda, and I share it and dump on you guys all in 3 years when they unlock, or 6 months for most projects, and then the project ends. But you know, we decided we wanted to do this more. This was like a Zcash style dev share model, and it just incentivizes you. We felt that it sort of aligns properly, because like we want the price to stay high, so we have an incentive to do that, which means that we're going to keep working. And we also like, we don't have it wouldn't make sense for us to like leave the project or like just dump all of our tokens. That's kind of why we lined those incentives.
So what's been the evolution of DevShare? Because it started with DevShare,
It's the same.
Tellor Flex, or Tellor X.
It's the same. We just the only thing we took out when Tellor X, it used to do a transfer every single time somebody would mine something. That's like insanely gas inefficient.
Yeah.
So we just have it like, it just accrues, and then whenever we go pull it,
Which is kind
there's
of
like
like a-
one
it's
transfer.
It's
like
just
an
a
auto
cruise,
bill.
like the way that it happened is like we actually minted it in November. We minted enough of a supply for a year worth of DevShare and
Okay.
a year worth of
Time-based rewards.
time-based rewards. And then we just unlock them over time.
Okay,
And that's why our current supply hasn't really changed.
got it. So, I mean,
Functionally, it's the exact same.
Function.
yeah, it's still DevShare, just not both from each transaction.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know how we.
But then now, I guess we're gonna go back to sort of like every month we issue it. So it's not every transaction, but it will be like once a month it's minted. How would this be done?
Or we would just have a function that we could go pull it, like as it
Yeah,
accrues.
But it will
something.
be,
At our discretion versus not every, it doesn't have to necessarily be automatic.
so right now we mint it for 2 years. We're not minting right now.
Yeah, so I would put like a
So-
function in similar to like
Mm,
talking about how it would actually work. I would say it would be like, you guys get, you know, what time was the last pull? You know, every
But it's
month
a
you get
mint-
4,000
it's a mint
tokens, and then
directly.
it's like a mint every time you
It's a
pull.
mint directly.
Yeah, so if you wanted to pull every minute, you could, but wouldn't be any tokens, you know, or you could just wait a year and pull 4,000 times 12, something. Probably how I would build it, but
So our supply is more kind of weird depending on how we.
yeah, you get a big jumps in the supply, and which is actually
Fun questions to answer.
super fun one for tax treatment purposes. Like, it's like, if we have the ability to mint tokens when we run this function, when do we owe taxes? Super fun.
They kind of get thrilled.
Right. Okay, so token. So the one thing we haven't talked about, is there anything we can do to make the token better? How can we reward people for holding and staking it, give it value? Obviously we have the staking. But we have auto pay. This is what we want to push people towards. Basically, I think I have agreed with Brenda on this one. We would make it so people use TRB to pay. Use TRB, we push people to use TRB. Obviously, you can use, if you want to use your own token or something like that, you could build something that like, you know, trades it or converts it, or there could be special structures, but we want people using TRB for it. And then there is a fee. Currently, we have 2% fee. We could raise it, could lower it. 2% seems cool. Maybe a little higher. But what should this 2% fee do? That's the question. We were thinking, why don't we just pay token holders? So we could use this to pay, and I wouldn't even just pay holders, I would pay staked holders.
Yeah, so they're off exchange. Well, I guess the exchange could stake. But I don't know if legally.
And I would just make this stake,
They don't do
you're
that.
staked as a reporter. So, like, there's only one,
We got it.
so you can stake as a reporter, you don't even have to report. You're ready to report, which is good for the system. You don't have to. and then you just get a 2% fee. And then what I would do is similar to how the treasuries worked, which we already have the code. You have to vote. So,
We're delegate.
or delegate, yeah. So if there's votes going on, you got to report or else you don't get your rewards. That way, we have people incentivizing them to delegate, incentivizing them to stake, incentivizing them to vote. And then now, what's the benefit of holding this? And the weird thing about this is, so auto pays on a bunch of different networks. Same with you're staked on a bunch of different networks. You actually have to pick which network you stake on to get rewards. So if you're staked on mainnet and nobody uses mainnet, nobody funds mainnet auto pay, you actually don't get any rewards. But if you're staked on Polygon and that's where everyone's using auto pay, that's where you'll get rewards. It incentivizes people to move and stake your token on the chain that is actively being used, which is good. So.
And you can only vote if you're staked in this model?
No, you can vote. Well, there's reporters. So like reporters kind of have, you're part of the reporters 25% if you're staked, but then you can still vote if you just have your token over on the network.
Okay.
So,
But you don't get.
but you only get rewards if you're staked.
Uh-huh.
So for the rest of it.
How do you get the vote results from different chains to like,
You don't care about on the other chains. For
that's
results.
right, because it's not for upgrades anymore. It's not.
Just for disputes.
Not upgradable.
Cool.
So a lot of different things you can do with it, but that way you're incentivized to stake, you're incentivized to, hop on, and that way if you have a bunch of staked reporters, and moving to Tellor Flex, like you don't need like a bunch of different addresses. You can have a whole bunch of stakes, in one address, so it makes it a little bit easier than key management on mainnet.
How does autopay fund dev share?
It doesn't.
It doesn't? Okay.
That's just the normal. The token itself funds the dev share.
What are the two?
So technically, you could, like the DAO could vote to use the tokens that are minted every month to fund a different contract than auto pay. It could be like a different payment
Yeah,
contract. It
Okay.
could be anything.
Okay.
could be anything.
Could be.
That's what we said, like if we somehow blow up in users and we have 100 users, but for whatever reason, nobody's reporting, we could just, I don't know, use it, but usually it should work through auto pay, but you could give like more rewards to just reporters, or if we wanted to do like, we have all these tokens, let's give them to marketing, or let's give them to, have a giveaway of some sort, or just burn them. Lots of things you can do. Okay.
Is the stake amount still the same? And does
Yep.
the staker have to be, can you stake less than the reporter and still earn the fee in this?
No, I wouldn't, because the reason we want people staked is that way you're able to report. So like in case the network, there's a lot of strong things like if the network goes down or if there's like an attack, being ready to report is really good. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about, do we want to lower the stake on mainnet, raise it? Mainnet's a super tough one because block times are so long. But we can obviously talk about what the stake on every network is, and we should probably have some sort of formula with that, but because like right now, like we just have 10 TRB, it's the same on Matic, it's the same on Harmony, same on Arbitrum, and like they're all vastly different chains. So like we're just sort of hand wavy about 10 TRB sounds nice because they're all really, really fast.
Could it depend on usage too? Like
Usage would matter. It probably more matters like, does their chain have finality? Does their chain, how fast is their chain? Usually the slower the chain, the higher the stake has to be.
How quickly you can replace a bad value.
Yeah,
okay.
so a lot of different things, but maybe making it somewhat formulaic versus arbitrary, or maybe arbitrary is and simple is it's fine. It might be like we're 10's more than enough and keeping it at 10 is way simpler for people to understand. Might very well could be the case. Other things we want to do, keepers. We had talked about this. You can have them, you can follow the exact same structure. Keepers are paying them to do something. So you could say like, hey, like we have verify on Ampleforth, we have to run every night. Somebody just has to run this function or push too. So once a value is mined, then somebody has to run push on it. How do you incentivize people to do that? It's a keeper. You just pay somebody to run this function. It doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter, you know. Lots of people use keepers to automate, like you could have like an alarm clock on Ethereum, like send me money from this address or click this button when it's live. We can create some keeper networks, funding them directly through auto pay. So yeah. I'd love to look at too, I didn't add this to the sheet, but is there a way to tie in MEV with it? Both of these. So could you pay the miners directly if they include it in the block? I don't know. You could. Get things to go even faster to compete with some other keepers. That's for research. The other thing is a mixer. This is on the research list. Tim and I had been talking about this one. You could use the auto pay as a mixer as well. Tornado Cash has this thing where you fund a big amount and then you can take out little amounts privately. So you could have like a giant mixing service built into this. Could be cool. Basically, you have money coming in and money going out to somebody. That's, I don't know. Basically, if you anonymize it all, now you have a mixing service. Get added in. Get some more fees. Legal review pending. Okay, so that's it on kind of the token piece. Questions so far?
I still kind of wonder if we need checkpointing in the token, because in a vote, you can move your tokens around and vote from different addresses with the same token.
You can. But so the only issue is, so there's no checkpointing on any of these bridge tokens.
Right.
So like mainnet would be different. Obviously, it does increase security, but I think that in my mind, what you would say is, well, you can do that, but at the same time, we have multiple voting rounds. So it sort of takes it away. Because if you knew that somebody was doing that in vote round one, the next you would basically dispute it to another round, and then honest people would do that too. And it would come down to whoever has the most money.
Yeah.
Which it always does.
Right.
In either of the voting scenarios. So I think like the game theory works out that it's okay. Only due to the fact that we have multiple rounds.
Right. Yeah.
So
and would we possibly want to only let you vote if you're staked? Because you only get the reporter stake if you have a report put in. So you get like one reporter vote per submission. But anyways, kind of like that maker blog post that you posted. That would be one way to do voting, where you have to have money staked.
you could, yeah. I mean, right now, the token holders who aren't staked or users only have a 25% weight anyway. The question would be, could we just chop it all the way off?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it's a fair.
I mean, I guess then if you're staked, then your TRB is locked up for a little bit, so you have a little even more skin in the game.
You can move them around to like do different. It acts as a checkpoint.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
staked.
Because there's a waiting period to unstake it.
Right.
Mhm. Can you do that with?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what would be the
With all
benefit
the
of having it
state?
open to everyone would be people who don't want to stake would be able to vote.
Mhm.
and smaller people would be able to vote.
Yeah,
Not that their vote weight would count for much, but give them a say.
yeah.
So. Okay, so yeah, we'll put it on here. Only stakers. Take it out.
And I think that has, I like that because it would act as a checkpoint.
Right,
Because even if, so in a smaller chain where it's actually cheaper to do like the transfer vote, on Ethereum, it's too expensive. I think that definitely works out.
What's the transfer vote then?
If you could vote from your address, send your coins to another address and vote from that address.
But if they're staked, they can't do that.
Right.
And we don't have to keep track of their checkpoint balances.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I thought,
it's not an issue really,
Yeah,
anyway, but
And this would prevent, or it would make it harder for exchanges.
yeah,
to
that was what I was
control the
thinking.
vote.
But I mean, they could still stake.
They could, but they wouldn't want to stake all their tokens because they're an exchange and they need liquidity.
Yeah, but I mean,
Lately, they don't typically.
they never do because I mean, like if an exchange wanted to be malicious on
Mhm.
any of these tokens, it would be the nightmare scenario, basically.
Yeah,
Like,
That is the black.
yeah, I mean, obviously this could help, but if an exchange that holds 30% of our tokens, whether they're voting or not, they have a say.
Mhm.
So it's just is what it is.
What would the breakout of the 2% be across stakers based on how much they hold? Like,
Yeah, so it would be based on how much you have staked.
so like if there were 3
And they
people
voted.
staked,
Yep,
they would get
a third of,
a third of 2%,
yep.
and then it has more, okay.
And I mean, it wouldn't be much until fees get high, be basically trivial. Beyond, but we have to figure out how to track that. Yeah,
When a value gets disputed on Tellor Flex, I feel like I should know the answer to this. But how many of the stakers tokens get locked up?
one stake,
One
so
stake.
10 on Polygon.
So the address can't report, but only 10 tokens are locked up? Is that how it is?
what do you mean, why only 10, like the dispute fee?
Yes.
So the dispute fee is 1 to start out with,
What about the
but it goes up
stake? As a reporter,
if you get disputed.
if I get disputed, I have 100 TRV staked,
Polygons, it's your whole stake is locked.
the whole stake is locked.
Well,
No, oh
one
no,
stake.
one stake,
So
yeah.
even if you have 100 left, you just get 10.
Yeah.
taken.
One stake per disputed value.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But then that address is also like,
that address can continue to report though if they still have other
Yeah,
So
stakes.
like 9 out of the 10 stakes can still report.
interesting.
But that doesn't preclude somebody else to submit for the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason you did that is basically like, if they were actually malicious, it's sort of trivial to just break it up among 10 addresses.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, it is.
it wouldn't make any difference.
So
Um,
at some point in the future, if we ever wanted to change that fee from 2%.
yeah, you could. I mean, this could be, so this is another great topic. Yeah, we had, could you increase this? Basically, the auto pay is a completely separate contract. All it is, it says like, go report on these Tellor values, and then we're gonna pay 98% of it to that reporter and 2% to this other contract. It actually isn't connected to the token
Okay.
or the Oracle in any way, shape, or form. It just reads from the Oracle. So anybody you could have multiple auto pays on different things with different fees. Somebody could even, this has always been an issue, you could take an auto pay, chop out the fee. Then what happens? Or you could chop out using TRB. Then what happens? It kind of breaks a lot in our system. We want people doing it. The basics is I think if that was the case and a malicious party was doing that, because like you would want it to be fair, like you want people to use TRB because this is an ecosystem. We're trying to support the network. You can get over it. And 2% fee, it's not extractive. Like supports this whole ecosystem.
Reporting on your disputes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like basically what you would say is like if you fork us and are using autopay on your query IDs, we may or may not vote on your disputes. We may or may not vote correctly on your disputes. And you would have to like hold that thread over them to say like, go pay the fee or else you're gonna get,
Yeah, not gonna cooperate.
right, like, listen, our team wallet has a big portion of this vote and all of the other reporters who are paying honestly and the other users are probably gonna not like this either, so go play nice. And I think just the threat of it is like plenty that, you know, I think if this was a 50% fee,
Yeah.
could be, you know, now maybe people would come up with some different systems, you know, but 2% fee, not that bad.
And that's on everything. Like if somebody were to auto pay and they
Yeah,
wanted to auto pay a lot in advance, it wouldn't be like a discount in fee.
no,
Okay.
yeah,
Will they have to buy tokens to create that, like to fund the auto pay?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yes, if they made their own auto pay, they would miss out on these token rewards that are funding from the contract, right?
Well, they would basically just have to,
Yeah.
or they could just campaign
It's not
to the
subsidized.
DAO side. And be like,
Yeah,
hey,
they could campaign.
give us this,
They could
But
fund
campaign.
this auto pay
That'd be
thing.
fun anyway.
They could, yeah.
but yeah, so I mean, that would be like, I don't think it would be an issue, but you can play out the game.
I
right
mean,
there.
I don't think anybody would buy this. EIB.
No. All right, so other things, just a few more things. So Telliot, how do we make Telliot better? I think the bigger thing, we want to monitor disputes better. That's like the biggest thing. A large portion of our security comes from our ability to monitor disputes and properly dispute them. We want to make Telliot or some software really, really good at this, and we got to get better. We know we do as far as monitoring our network goes, to help security. Other than that, probably just simplicity / ease of use. As we grow and go on a lot of other chains, we want to make sure that Telliot is easy to use for everyone. Like any software, obviously. You know, I don't think there's any massive changes we can do, but you know, maybe we could rebuild it from scratch this year, maybe not. Lots of things we can think about, but it's not any really big like changes as far as like, you know, the last one when we went from proof of work to proof of stake, there was like really big technical changes, but obviously since we already support Tellor Flex on Telliot, so it's not like we have to change too much for it to work on the next version. I know we had talked in the past about a peer-to-peer database. These are some things that we can think about in general, just how can we sort of be better stewards of the space? Because like we have, you know, we could actually have Telliot and other and our system actually be more of just a standard pricing tool. So, you know, like right now, a lot of people will come to us like, what should we use as the Bitcoin price? What should we use for the BCT price or the CNY price? These are really, really hard questions because like, what is the Bitcoin price? How do you do this? You know, we could theoretically have Telliot as an open source software, even like serving on a peer-to-peer database, like have it be an open API that is a data feed for the Bitcoin price that anybody can query the Bitcoin price currently from, you know, our nodes. That'd be super cool for people. And then we could be like the standard Bitcoin price out there. That's not linked to an exchange. It doesn't have to do anything really with necessarily putting it on chain, but just you could be the standard of this is the best way to do it. And same with, you know, like a lot of times, like, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to like pull stock prices from the internet. All APIs are like, come sign up here with an email and
Yeah.
give us your registry and everything like that.
Yeah.
We could just have a peer-to-peer database. We could query stock prices. I don't know. So like, you know, as a decentralized database, could be cool. Store stuff on IPFS. Get creative here.
The database as a feature.
Yeah, like it's just the, you know, what that price of Bitcoin is that our nodes are reporting in our really robust aggregation methodology that we put in place. That could be it. You know, like people have talked about like the inflation methodology, like, I don't know, we have the resumes as good as anyone to come up with a new inflation methodology. Like we can do that. And we just serve it. And then it's not even, if people want to request input on chain, they can, but we could be useful to the space as far as just, that's what we put out. Things, fun things to think about. Anything on Tellor?
Well, I mean, Tellor is who we really need to grow the, in addition to our users. Growing the reporting network is the secondary most critical.
The reporting network should follow from users. Like if users are paying, reporters will come. Like, you know, and we've always struggled with this as far as like, you know, because you can even see it in like Bitcoin, or I get like, how many miners do you need to have a successful Bitcoin? If you have 5, is that enough? Probably 5 of them control like 50% of the hash rate. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. 10, 20. I don't, you know, like there's not really like, it's not 10,000. You don't need that many. You just need basically a handful of people who can report for a profit. And the cool thing about us, like, you know, like even versus like a chain link, like we could actually have 5 reporting parties with a ton of stakes who are providing all of the data requests and they're making all the money on our network. We're actually more decentralized, even if we just have those 5, than Chainlink is if they have 500. The reason? Anybody can dispute, and then if those 5 guys go down, the money's still flowing. Somebody's gonna step up and do it.
Yeah.
So like just the fact that you can replace them, like
Even though there's less of them, you don't have to trust them as much.
right. You just want to make sure that people know how to replace them and come in there and report on new things. And you could always do something with auto pay. You know, we've had ideas about, I don't know, you could give people like first time reporter incentives just to test it out. Like,
Yeah.
if, you know, like have fun games like that to play, like, hey, if you come on here and actually do register with us, and then you're eligible to be a reporter, you can make $1,000 this month. Just to like make sure that you're getting new fresh blood and not the really big guys. So
And so like the competitive nature, because we were just talking about how like Crossy has really good software built for his purposes, built on top of Tellor.
sure.
And for somebody coming in, at least on mainnet, competing against him is something that just seems like very challenging to do for somebody new. Now moving on to different change, that's kind of been addressed, right? And I guess, is there more that should be done or could be done, or maybe it doesn't need to happen at all in terms of like the barrier of entry being a little bit more approachable, and then allowing somebody newer to be competitive, or a pathway to be competitive without.
It's probably super tough to make it competitive.
Well, yeah, and like I've had that question a lot too, and usually what Nick, I'm gonna paraphrase, is like, you have an end game where there is like going to be a few number of reporters who like dominate, and we have one right now, Crossy, And it's like, okay, we could, like, what is the purpose of putting in more effort to equalize when there's always gonna be someone who's like going to dominate? We already know Crossy cares about the system,
Yeah,
so it's like, what, do we need
Yeah.
to do anything about that?
When you take out open competition, you lose security too, I think. Because then you've developed software where people have to, like if you were gonna make it so the reporters share rewards equally or something like that. Then you created an environment where there's no competition, there's never any innovation.
sure,
Nobody
yeah,
ever
I,
really
yeah,
goes
I'm
on.
not necessarily advocating for that.
The team is the only group of developers building on it, if it's like that.
And what technology is Grassy actually using? Does it actually have to do with Tellor or the way that he sends transactions? Like, are we really able to like?
Yeah, I mean, it's
do a
basically the
manual-
reality
Yeah,
is,
more efficient.
he's, there's just like so many ways he's probably optimizing. I mean, like, he's just a better, he's spent way more time and he's a better developer than like the resources that we have, like realistic.
Okay.
And so,
Well, I mean, it's just not a game that we try and play.
yeah, we
know.
don't know, like, if we could beat him really, like,
You
we
got-
haven't invested,
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna.
I
put
mean,
all
this
these
is-
resources in
yeah.
too,
And yeah, and I'm not necessarily looking at it as like trying to beat anybody as much as like just the way that we position ourselves about like anybody can be a reporter, but not anybody can be competitive.
I mean, this is the same problem, like, I mean, can anybody be an ETH miner, Spuddy?
And be competitive.
No,
Now you just look up to the pool. The pool is competing. And you're just-
but I mean, most people, like, if I plugged in my GPU, would I make any money? Like my Mac,
Depends on what you do.
but probably not.
I think like a couple bucks a day.
Yeah, I mean, like, so you probably, like, it's super hard. We could probably have some way of, Like-
You could randomly select a pool of reporters each time who could compete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like maybe that, at that moment, Crossy doesn't get selected. And then
Yeah.
There's an open opportunity for that one request.
But I think the other thing we need up there is like better tips monitoring, because like in theory, like, okay, if you put the money out there, like people are gonna go report to it. But I think right now,
that's what we're working on too.
like,
Yeah,
we need to lower the barrier for even Crossy to report on
yep,
all these things. So like, we need to build the example clients and document how someone else would build it into their own client, like reporting in every way, basically.
I think the other thing you could do is like, so pools, as Buddy mentioned, we could fund pools. So like, if, we have those tokens that are available, you could say, listen, we're gonna send this to tip contracts. And to be a reporter on these tip contracts, it's actually only for registered pools. Just to try and diversify the reporter market a little bit. And you could do something like that.
And Crossy could still dispute those values, which is.
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure. So,
And
But-
so, yeah, I guess Telly is the reporting aspect of it, the disputing aspect of it, anybody can do.
yep,
And we don't really have a client specifically for disputing.
no, and that's what we want to make it easier to dispute too. It's definitely something we do. Usually part of the disputes though, building a robust reporting network, that's what we've always found is the best way to get disputes.
handle
The
disputes.
reporters were always the ones disputing each other. It wasn't users or token holders were never monitoring for disputes. It was always like, hey, I saw this really weird price. I don't want to submit on a weird price. So it raised my red flags and then I disputed.
We always had Tellor scan too, which was,
That's what we used for disputing, but I mean, I don't know what the other guys were using. Like, what were the Chinese guys using? I have no, they weren't using Tellor scan. They didn't even speak English.
well,
So. Yeah. All right.
Well, and I guess with Telly and trying to encourage users to also be reporters, is there tying in of either auto pay or?
I mean, yeah, we don't necessarily want them. They can, but we don't.
Maybe cheaper for them.
Especially for like somebody who's gonna be like reporting their own data.
Sometimes people might, but you know, I guess it would just depend on the user, you know. How much you want to push that as far as like, you know, I've even found it talking to users, like a lot of times users just want it simple, like they don't want to have to think
Maybe the
about.
messaging for that should be more like just becoming part of the centralized network.
Yeah. Like telling them they can, but
Yeah,
don't worry, you don't have to run software 24/7 to keep this thing up
Yeah,
and
this is
running
not a
for you.
requirement for you to get your data. It's just a safeguard if you did want to report your data.
I always tell people it makes sense to learn how to do it, just in case there is an opportunity. You already know how to do it. You can jump in the network and report.
And like realistically for new users and stuff, usually you need it because you have to test their thing, test reporting for it. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd love to make like a front end too that's easier than you could have like the one like submit to the Tellor Oracle via front end. So it like automatically pulls the nonce, converts things to bytes for you, which we basically have all the code up there. But then you could easily just,
we did it.
oh man, my data's down. Like I'm gonna go on MetaMask and click, submitted the price. Go. All right. So last piece, messaging, things that we want to change on messaging. I kind of touched this. Yeah, this would be, do we want to focus on being a DAO? You know, there's a lot of, I mean, how much do we want to focus on being a DAO? This is more of a move away from being a DAO and from a community and things like that, because they actually have less say, because you're moving towards the voting structure where token holders only have a 25% weight. And there's less they can change in the system. So you're kind of pivoting a little bit away from that. But it's sort of like being a more, I keep saying protocol like, you know, we are software. Like,
What's
you know,
what's the distribution again? Like the just proposed distribution? 25 token holders, 25
reporters, users, team.
users.
Yeah. That's currently what it is on Polygon, so we like it, but that's, we can change that too.
I feel like we've been talking about moving more towards being a DAO, but I don't really
mean,
know like where we are on the spectrum of being a DAO, where we actually sit.
I mean, you could say we're down now. We're more DAO-like than most DAOs. But you know, like I think the big thing that I've kind of changed my mind over, you know, just be honest, like it's super hard to get participation in these things. You know, that's why we're moving. That's why I want to move towards more the people actually with some stakes of some votes. Because yeah, getting the token holders to vote is it's a problem that we're not solving. So, you know,
Using Snapshot, you can get more token holders to vote, but not necessarily more tokens to vote.
you can get more token holders to vote, but does that mean that the outcome of the vote is better is also a question.
The outcome, I think the outcome of the vote is the same, because there's not like the people who want to vote on Snapshot probably don't hold as many tokens as someone. Who
Yeah.
vote.
But I mean, you find it like with the Discord. I mean, we love those of you that may watch this and are very into it, but you know, you tend to have just a handful of people who are really, really into it, and then a lot of people who are not. Even the users, I mean, from all of our users, like, you know, even they don't want to vote. They don't want to monitor it. You know, we're the ones that go tell them that the Tellor Oracle, you know, is doing XYZ. And then, you know, even like Mike Genn, who ran Tellor Pool, he doesn't, you know, like he's like arguably one of the people that we might get to be able to vote on it, but only because if we ping him on things. You know, users seem to just want a lot of the ease of use. They know it's decentralized. They know it works. It's not going to think about it. So coming from that, yeah, like just, it works. Making that a reality in my mind is where we want to go. And then, yeah, I mean, the big thing. So a lot of these changes aren't that drastic, I guess, even in the code base. But like if I could see us in a year, it would just be like a lot better documentation to kind of show how people do this. They can do it really, really quickly. A little bit more front end tools maybe, but you know, most of it is coding. So it's just gonna have to be with like how we explain to people how to integrate Tellor and a price feed is clean. Yeah, it's super tight. You know, because like the guy who came on our Discord today and was asking, like, he had the exact right idea. When he was putting in a spot price in the query builder, and then he of course, he ran into BTC versus BCT, but that's a different issue. But you know, and then he's like, okay, and then I'll fund it. And how much does it cost? So like, I mean, we're doing something right. He's asking, he's obviously following along correctly. So but like making that actually happen. And then ideally, you know, like in a year, what I would want to see from the system is like, we just have Telly up and running. Oh, we see a tip for a brand new query. Looks like somebody new is using Tellor. That's pretty cool. And then we start submitting, or you see a pull request for something else. Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, that the whole like process of like getting a user and like going from like them
Yep.
making a query ID to both like documentation and like how do you make it decentralized, because it's still gonna be like, ooh, they have to open up a request and one of the team has to like.
Well, for brand new stuff you do, but like I think for like spot prices, you don't.
Yeah.
You know, like you could just go submit a spot price update.
Yeah.
You know, obviously for brand new things, like I think that there's always going to be like, you know, maybe some of the ways that we could do that too would be like moving a lot of the documentation or like submitting a pull request. We host that stuff on IPFS. You know, we have it, so you could anonymously submit it, and that's like it's stored over there. So then you don't have to give up any identity and nobody can take it down. But yeah, but those are just like wish list type things. But you know, ideally, like it's just very, very user friendly. We just start seeing people using it, people submitting it, other people, you know, oh, somebody added a tip. Oh, look, a reporter went and fulfilled it. Who was that? I have no idea. Like, and that would be the feeling that you want to get. And then it just sort of works. And then like, you know, yeah, there wouldn't really be any sort of need for anything. You know, because similar to like even like if you look at like the bar protocols in my mind, like what is like an Ethereum or a Cosmos or like, you know, Maker has a lot more say kind of in their protocol still, but like an Ethereum, they don't do anything. They don't run the monitoring tools. They have a they have a website that basically is just like, here's some Solidity docs. Yeah, so I mean, like you don't really have to do anything, and then it just sort of like it works, and then
It's just like Liquidity did the same thing, right? To abstract away no governance headaches. It's just
Liquidity does some of the stuff. Yeah. I mean, Liquidity sort of works too, but Liquidity is a little bit different in my mind because they're similar to most stable coins, and like they're sort of a CDP structure. They're roughly similar to a lot of the other ones. So like
CDP structure.
like Maker, that's a collateralized debt pool. That's like how they all work is roughly similar. So like the same people in one are in another. So like you can like kind of piggyback on other people's documentation a whole lot, like which is always helpful. Like same way with like, is Harmony really easy to use? It's like, no, they're just an EVM. So like, it's not like I didn't even touch their documentation. I just like used their node URL and then hope it all worked. And it did, which was great, but like you didn't have to touch their docs, which was phenomenal. So like maybe if there's piggybacking we can do in that sense, I don't know. But yeah, more things we can get for free.
So moving away from a DAO, like what is even,
It would just be more on the messaging.
yeah, but like from a governance standpoint, what would be voted on? Like
We will always need governance or voting
For disputes.
for disputes, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, but as far as like,
And then where do you use those 4,000?
Those 4,000 tokens, that's about it.
okay,
How is it moving away from a DAO? Isn't it just like we want to focus on like the software as being like this protocol, but aren't we still like the DAO basically?
You would be.
like
You would be, but I mean, like a DAO, a lot of times when I think of DAO, you have way more control over a lot of it. Like if we wanted to go mint 10,000 tokens, we could. if we wanted to, you know,
Change everything.
we wanted to work on this piece of software, like,
I mean, like the community proposal aspect of it, and like votes like that, like, where does that come into play?
There wouldn't be community proposals right now.
I mean, you could have community proposals for the 4,000.
That was for the 4,000 tokens. Okay.
Yeah, but that's like about it.
That's as far as it goes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So like thinking back to whenever, well, who fired like the marketing team?
Maker.
Yeah, Maker did. Like, that's not a vulnerability for the team itself.
No.
By being more protocol based, right? Okay.
With Tellor X, you could make proposals to fire the team and now hire this new team where all the funds go to.
Yeah.
Well, in this structure, you could too.
Not necessarily.
You can still do that, it just wouldn't be on chain.
Yeah.
Well, no, you'd have to fork it. Like, that's what now, like, you would have to, that's like usually a DAO, I think of as something that you don't have to fork. Like, I mean, theoretically, somebody could relaunch Tellor with a brand new team and, but they would have a new token address. And they would, you
So
know,
the topic we haven't talked about is forking and what situation would we
you would ideally never
require
fork the system.
fork or
I mean,
never fork?
you know, like
We do like Liquidity, where like our V2 is an upgrade, but it's a fork.
well, the way like, so like the way that it works now is like with Flex, is so like you would have a Flex contract here. And then let's say we rewrote Flex and we made it way better. Old people could still use this Flex and they could, oh, people currently using this Flex, like there's nothing preventing anyone
my old Flex.
from staking here and reporting here. You could keep that going forever if you would want. But then there would be a new Flex 2, and then you know you would have some reporters slowly move over here. It would be more similar to like the Uniswap model.
Okay.
Whereas like, you know, now it's like you would have
If we're
reporters on
taking the
both.
checkpoints out,
Because the token contract is separate.
what happens to our token address?
It stays the same.
Stays the same?
But the difference, so like Uniswap, the reason this sucks with Uniswap, no, we're not doing a fork. The reason it sucks whenever you upgrade in Uniswap, because like the liquidity, so like for ours, it would just be reporters moving over. But like if you wanted to keep some reporters over here, so let's say Liquidity couldn't update their Oracle address, they're stuck here. That's fine. They can stay there and everything should work out because reporters can stay over there. And as long as Liquidity is willing to pay, reporters will stay over there. Whereas like a Uniswap, if 75% of the liquidity goes over here, 75% of your security on your, you know, the liquidity is basically your security because people can drain it and manipulate the market, went somewhere else. So like, if you have to keep your own, you know, in our system, you could theoretically just be your own reporters over here. It would still work, but in Uniswap, what are you gonna do? Be your own liquidity? I mean, you can, but it's gonna be pricey. So, so
So Dexter would be locked in
locked in
forever.
and ever.
And so the only flexibility in terms of like, even if the team, you guys were like, we should double in size, we should triple in size. If you felt the need, we're still limited to that 4,000 tokens.
Yep. And that's before. I mean, like that's
We're still pretty limited by tokens, like, we could be printing ourselves 20,000 tokens a month,
Yeah, and
But-
price is still,
but you can't sell them. I mean, we could try and we would totally dump the price. Like,
So then you have to sell more. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
so it's.
okay.
So in Tellor
But
Flex,
there's-
like the multi-sig is like hard coded in there or something?
Like,
I mean, we could probably change, we have an ability to change it if we wanted to, but
we have
I
to
thought the
go for
point of
it.
having it as a protocol is that you can't change it and then you.
well, I mean, like if we wanted to like move our address,
you don't.
we could. You know, like we
Yeah,
could move
yes.
it, not the government.
Yeah, but I'm saying like,
Yes.
if the community is.
The
like,
community
this
couldn't
dev
vote
team,
to
like,
move it,
sucks,
yeah.
Like, we need to fork and like
No.
make a new, you know, that's what they would have to do basically.
Fork, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess would
Versus
this,
now they could just propose.
Now you can propose
Now
to
we can
end it,
just
yeah.
propose to basically take this out and do our vote on it. As long as you have, let's see. Is that quorum figure for that?
On
So
flex,
5%.
No.
there's
same.
no quorum in flex.
No, no, in
So,
the
yeah,
current,
How
Yeah,
does this
5%.
change, like?
So
Your
this actually
guys',
diminished, decreases our risk.
yeah, but how does this change, like, why, where this, to me, this seems very different from like before. Like, for example, Nick, you're saying like, oh, eventually I want to fire.
We can still fire everyone, yes,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
like,
okay.
well, like what
So there's,
happens,
Yeah.
like what
there's-
happens with that then? Oh, it's still going this multi-sig, I'm like,
Yeah, no, the multi-sig, just who controls the multi-sig is a different question.
well, then that's just like a, like, okay, we fired all ourselves and like, how do you give that? How do you
Right.
pass that off to someone like, oh, don't worry, I got rid of my private key, you know?
No, yeah, no, it would be, you'd have to like, you could see theoretically, like, we could DAOify that
I think you could,
team's dev share as far as like sending that to a governance contract. Like you could make even our team wallet also governed
just
by,
like the
or
auto
remote
pay,
governance.
what's
yeah,
going on.
I like, shouldn't we
The
like
rewards
kind of
one.
do that though?
you could.
Because having it hard coded in there seems very like not, you know, in line with the original kind of ideals, you know, where it's like, yeah, well, technically, if like we all got up and left and wanted to go do some other project, the community could be like, oh, all right.
Well, they
Not,
could,
maybe they wouldn't and like
right,
price tanks and everything dies, but like it
Sure.
could just be like, okay, now we just need to like vote instead of like, all right, fork and like do all this, you know.
yeah, I mean, I think for that, that would be like a process of like, when do we want to fire ourselves? And then we send it to another address.
How does this affect everyone's like idea of like? It's like.
I mean, like right
we
now,
have
it's
this,
sort of
like,
hard coded in where it goes.
Vague goal of like, ooh, in 2 years, we all get to like fire ourselves and now we're in
Yep.
a DAO structure or whatever. What's the?
It's
What's
still on
Flex
in my
ideas
mind,
now?
but
Yeah.
Brenda's never been on board with that idea, so.
That would still be
I
possible
think,
with this
yes.
stuff.
you
It's
could-
the exact same, it's the exact same possibility, so it's not like. Yeah, there's still kind of the exact same centralization versus decentralization on that front. As the current structure.
If we get to that, we will do the fork. And we'll make sure that it goes to a governance contract.
Well,
No, you wouldn't have to
won't,
do a
like,
fork.
having to do a vote.
No, you
Because you're
wouldn't.
not voting anymore for upgrades.
You would just send our contract address to like the team's address. We
Oh,
could change
we
our
would
team.
vote.
We would just have to
Only
send
that
it.
address can change it.
Yeah.
Can change the multi-sig address.
Mhm.
Okay, and
Only
we just,
multi-sig can
we would
change
just
multi-sig.
throw it to a governance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm.
exactly.
so,
Would governance be able to change the stake amount?
good question.
Or any other little parameters like that, like, I don't know, dispute fee?
Well, I mean, we have that now, don't we, in Flex?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I mean, but I guess we could think about like maybe parameterizing it more so you couldn't break anything with it.
Yeah. right.
I mean, or you could just leave it hard coded and then just fork, you know,
Okay.
should also be a good,
Mhm.
I think it would be fine.
Can an auto pay contract dictate how much stake the recipient has to have to get paid?
No,
Random question answered.
what you could do, so if you wanted more people staked.
Like, I was thinking, like, what if a specific user wanted their reporters to be more staked?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could they would have a requirement on their own auto pay with, like you stake on Tellor and you stake here? And that would be
But then they're
business.
doing their own auto pay thing.
Yeah, in theory, yeah, that could work.
Yeah.
What's the timeline for like, okay, we're having this discussion, like, when are we getting like community input on this? Like, how do you guys see that?
I mean, we're recording it.
Okay,
I'm hoping to post it. We'll see if we post it. If we don't post it, if you guys don't want to post this one, we'll probably do this exact same discussion in a week or two. And then we'll get a bunch of community input and,
I'll watch it. but
yeah.
I think it's
yeah,
clean.
yeah, I think it's fine, but like, I think there's just like some of these things that we need to.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
go-
I mean,
go a lot more.
there was like some issues with Tellor X. I mean, we were changing some stuff in like September, October.
Oh, yeah.
Was- You know, there's just things that we aren't thinking about here that we'll think about later and you change it.
We're literally on the brainstorming session of this. So if you remember the little cycle, we're like.
Yeah.
What if I send my TRP to this contract? Accidentally?
It's locked.
Yeah.
Tough shit, yeah. I mean, but that's, yeah, you can send your TRB, people send tokens to wrong addresses all the time. So, not
I
much
mean,
we
is
can do.
there a way that we can safeguard against that happening? Like rejecting?
You
tokens?
could, you increase gas every check you do, so is it worth it? Maybe.
It makes every TRP send more
Yeah.
expensive.
But. Yeah, so we can talk about it.
We could always vote with that 4,000 tokens to give
To give somebody their tokens back,
somebody
yeah.
if you wanted to.
And yeah.
We
I
could have a
mean,
function in the Oracle that it says it's for someone to claim some TRB that's been sent to the Oracle address. And it uses the Oracle to like allow someone to do that. Like, so it says like, this is my address. I accidentally sent this amount to the Oracle.
Well, I mean,
address.
if you accidentally send it to the Oracle, it's a bigger problem, but like in the token one, we could easily add a function that says like, if you send tokens to the token address, like you could just give us control over those tokens.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah,
was, that would be
that's what we
fine. And then we can transfer them. So like, you'd still be screwed if you sent it to the Oracle address, but if you send it to the token address, like we can help you out, probably.
So, yeah,
So.
at least we.
One of them, or,
That's the more likely one anyways.
the token.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes
Just
people,
once.
yeah,
Seven many, many times.
No, on in Tellor.
On the token address.
Well, yeah, but you can see the balance.
It's almost 1,000 sitting there.
Yeah. What?
I remember every.
Ridiculous.
So, I mean, going back to that 4,000 though, like, I know there was some math to determine the amount and like runway and stuff of that being a good number. Is that something that is,
you could debate it, yeah. I like it.
We're like, yeah, it looks like it could be profitable.
okay,
Or
and I mean,
enough to incentivize.
and that's based on a token price of something,
Just, yeah, like based on a
That's fair.
$50 price.
yeah, roughly
Yeah.
padded based on where.
It's always been the
It
case
is.
that the more one token will hold, the more incentive it is for reporters. No matter, like against Ethereum, as the value of TRV goes up against Ethereum, the network is more secure. That's always been.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Good job.
Lauren, anything? Ask the audience.
I don't think so. I've been taking notes though, if you guys need a
All right, scribe.
list of everything discussed.
Josh,
Just getting clicks.
Josh is Xing out of all the things that are currently on his screen.
How do I?
No, I just got a lot of things running on, so like it was laggy, but I don't know, everything sounds good. Me from the front end perspective, I feel a little bit of a disconnect with all this just because I'm still trying to usually front ends.
Much.
Huh?
It sounds like we don't want a front end like Liquid.
Yeah, it doesn't really change anything. I mean, it's basically like everything's moving to Tellor Flex, like the Polygon stuff, which most of the front ends work with right now anyway. So
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant by that. I meant by just kind of like as a general understanding of the full thing. Now that we're getting like more into the in-depth aspects of both like the token and Talia and kind of like how they work and how to improve them. That's what I was saying. Like that's where that disconnect was. I'm just kind of like, okay, because I have no reference for like, all right, these monitor disputes need to be better, or that needs to be a thing with Talia. I'm like, okay, I didn't even know that was a thing. So that's where I'm coming from. But one of my main thing is like with the whole Flex versus Flex 2 and stuff like that. with front end being kind of like last down the pipeline as far as, you know, like I'm running into this now with like the data feed. Is there ever going to be any kind of like one like way to do things, to like how to report and like the format of it, or is that just kind of going to be like an ongoing changeable, malleable thing depending on, I guess, the chains and just like what's the ecosystem is that the reporting system's trying to be? Because down the pipeline with front end kind of like having to digest all of that, then you have a lot of these weird extraneous cases that you have to account for, and it just makes everything really messy with like having all of the legacy requests, but then also like the legacy requests being encoded the Tellor Flex way versus not being encoded the Tellor Flex way. And then there's the new Tellor Flex, so just all the spot price stuff. There's like the custom queries eventually, I'm assuming, that could be supported. So like, is there ever going to be some type of like format, like straightforward format that could live on all of the chains? If Flex is going to be something that's going to be multi-chain and kind of like the new standard, with that standardization rollout, could there also be kind of like a standardization across the board with everything to make everything a lot cleaner? Or is there always going to be a need for having those legacy
No, it should get a
formats?
lot cleaner. It should, I mean, we'd love, definitely as we do this, we want to talk to you to, you know, make sure that everything you had, like, this is also the time, like in Tellor Flex, like, we're going back and we're going to change the code in Tellor Flex. Like, if you want more getters, you want different events, things like that, let us know, we can add them in. So, yeah, definitely think through it. And then hopefully it should be standard on all the chains.
And as time goes on, like we might discover like more limitations with our current system, and it might change, but you know, in theory, as time goes on, there's less change because you figure, you know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like even this change, like, although it sounds like we just put a lot on the board, this change is so much smaller than Tellor V2 to Tellor X. So it's like, you know, it's not nearly that big of a change. So
And Tellor Flex is pretty much done.
yeah, so it's, you know, like I said, we can go back, we can maybe change a few things about what people can vote on, what people can maybe add some events and getters, make it easier for the front end, some stuff like that. But overall, it's looking much more solid. So, all right, Nakrim, anything?
Not really. The only one thing I think Owen was alluding to as well is I thought the biggest thing of moving from a DAO to a protocol would make it, I guess, more decentralized. But if you can just have a version 2, I'm kind of lost in that piece. How is that less decentralized or more decentralized?
A version 2 in what way?
Like if you were to have a Flex now and then you can just fork it and.
Well, no, so I mean, it's the difference between when you can have a Flex and then we relaunch a new Flex, we can push users there, but there's nothing that tells users like you have to get off this one. They can, if reporters want to stay here and users want to pay them here, they can stay here.
Flex 2 needs to be better to make sense.
Yeah, like it's more opt-in for the users, whereas if you had upgradability and governance, that would be like Flex turns into Flex 2. So it upgraded whether you wanted to or not. That's kind of how it's more decentralized, and it's more of the like opt-in approach versus anything. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. And then, yeah, we'll lots of fun stuff. I mean, timeline for this, we'll post this video, get some community feedback, probably brainstorm it, write it out. Like we have this document now, write out into more of a formal proposed changes article. That's probably over the next month. Then we'll code it for a month, test it for a month, audit, test it on test nets for a month, then launch. So
It's very cool.
nice, long, maybe we can hit September, October is like the timeline on this. So don't hold your breath, but it'll be here before you know it. So cool. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, the data is like sick. It's very cool.
Do I end or do I stop recording?
If you